Breaking ball and a call. Strike three. Third strikeout for Zach. He's going to just watch it go. A grand slam for Bryson Stott.
And there's a high fly ball. Deep right field. Harper watches it fly.
From WHYY, this is Hittin Season, a Philadelphia Phillies podcast. My name is Justin Klugh. I write for Baseball Prospectus, and my book, Summer of the Cheap Wieners, is available for pre-order now and will be out in February 2026 from Brookline Books. With me is Liz Roscher, the editor of Sabres Baseball Research Journal. Hello, Liz.
Hello. I'm actually did not know that your book is available for pre-order, and I'm literally doing it right now.
This is not the first time that a podcast co-host has learned information about the book or that there is a book while we're recording a show. So I'm glad I'm doing this because the marketing push is clearly already effective. I'm glad. Yeah.
My God, the cover is so awesome. Everyone look it up.
It's perfect. It's on Goodreads. You can go look at it and tell Goodreads that you want to read it. It just makes me look more popular, which I know is what we all want to do. So thank you. Hey, Liz, you catch that Mets game yesterday?
Actually, a very good friend of mine was at it with his almost 2-year-old son.
Good. I'm glad they get exposed to this early because this is the life you've chosen for your very young child. I hope that registers with you, parents of Mets fans. And look, I'm not upset at all. I'm glad about what's happening to the Mets. Of course, the Mets are closer to 500 than ever now that they lost yesterday to the Washington Nationals, a truly bad baseball team, whom the Phillies also, fair's fair, split a series with that they should have won. But the Mets lost 9-3 to the Nationals yesterday, sinking to 60-67 on the season. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and read you an excerpt from an article by Tim Britton, who covers the Mets for The Athletic. Less than 48 hours ago, the Mets could claim a shift in momentum. They'd won a series against a good team and cracked jokes in the clubhouse Tuesday night after opening this road trip with their crispest game in weeks. But what was lighthearted Tuesday was downtrodden Thursday, following a series loss to a last-place team. "We have to be better," said Juan Soto. Tell me you haven't heard that phrase enough times this season. In a script all too familiar over the last several weeks, the Mets were blitzed in the middle innings and silent against an opponent's bullpen, wasting an early 3-run lead and a 9-3 loss to the Nationals. It's New York's first series loss in the nation's capital since 2021, when Soto played right field for the home team here. The Mets are under 500 this season against the 3 teams beneath them in the National League East standings, consistently missing opportunities to take advantage of the softer parts of their schedule. New York is a half game ahead of idle Cincinnati for the final wildcard spot, and it fell a season-high 7 games behind first-place Philadelphia in the division. We've got to get going. We've got to see results, manager Carlos Mendoza said. We don't have much time left.
Indeed.
It's like your hairs stand up on the back of your neck, but in a good way.
In a very good way.
Yeah, you like to see the Mets panicking. And yes, this could all be the prologue to, the underdog chosen one story that carries the Mets into the postseason. Anything's possible. It's baseball. But right now, it's good to see the Mets. They really were going through it. And as Britton wrote, they did look a little better for a blip of time there and then went right back to sagging. And this can all be considered the same downturn for the team. Maybe it's 2 separate downturns for the team. Ultimately, I don't think you can be truly floored by what's happening to the Mets and what's been happening to the Mets, Liz, because they acquired Juan Soto, sure. They have a great, 4 or 5 guys to start their batting order. They made some really, what I thought, good acquisitions at the trade deadline to fortify a bullpen. But they're not a thick team, let's say. They are wanting in certain areas, and those bullpen additions have not paid off. Ryan Helsley has very much struggled as a member of the Mets bullpen. Juan Soto is not playing his best, not nearly so recently, and the Mets are in general just kind of struggling the way a team that doesn't have a good starting rotation, even if they have all-stars in other positions, typically does. So, I mean, would you say you're particularly surprised to see the Mets get within 7 games of 500 here in late August?
Honestly, I am. I am surprised to see them do this. I mean, I didn't think I had hoped that last year wouldn't repeat itself, because that was terrible. I hated that from the point of view of a Phillies fan. But I thought they were going to be stronger, especially down at this point. That's what I thought they were building for. Though now I'm remembering how much I criticized them earlier in the season when they did nothing but sign Juan Soto. They signed Juan Soto and like maybe a few other like lower level guys, and like their rotation is like Sean Manaea and a bunch of guys I don't remember.
David Peterson has had a great year for them. It's all you can say about the Mets rotation. That's all you can say.
Yeah, I mean, I was not scared of this team, but concerned in April. You know, they had offensive powerhouse. They'd re-signed Pete Alonso for some reason because I guess there's nowhere else he could play but New York. But I'm wondering why because their rotation is nothing and their offense is built on one dude. Well, it feels like the Phillies always have trouble offensively because they do. They have a lot of different dudes. You know, they have a lot of different guys that can hit like reliably or at least get into a good hot streak and kind of move things along. The Mets don't have that. Like, good gosh.
Then they keep going up a little bit early and then blowing the lead. That's the general formula for a Mets loss these days. And yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I would have considered them more formidable earlier in the season, but then again, they were winning more earlier in the season. I think the lesson here is, and this goes for more teams than just the Mets, but you mentioned last year's postseason and how insufferable that was to watch as someone rooting against the Mets. But unquestionably, they had the juice and the Phillies didn't. But I think the lesson here is juice might be the best thing to have going into the postseason, any postseason for any team. But the juice never lasts. And I think you're seeing that happen here. Mark Vientos was a big part of that juice. Mark Vientos has not played like playoff Mark Vientos this year. Not even close. The Mets have a big old hole at third base. It has not been good times there. And that's one of several deep flaws that have really been sinking them lately. And I kind of don't want to dwell on it too much because, you know, there's still over a month of baseball left in the regular season, and you don't want to start dancing on anybody too soon. Though I do remember saying that the Braves were done back in like May, but turns out I was right. One of the rare moments I was correct with a prediction this year. So that is satisfying. But all that aside, I don't want to dance on the Mets too soon because anything can happen. However, I'm not going to say this isn't enjoyable because it very much is. And as much as the Phillies can widen their lead in the division, they should do so. 7 games feels really good. You know, that feels really good because even if things were to go totally sideways, it would be at least a week before anything seismic would truly shift in the National League East. And hopefully that lead just keeps getting bigger. If the Phillies keep playing the way they did against Seattle, that's not going to be hard. Liz, would you say in this series where the Phillies were hitting like 20 hits a game, everybody top to bottom of that batting order was just crushing Mariners pitching? Luis Castillo in Game 3 just did not stand a chance against the Phillies. They were just Trey Turner, just completely out of control at this point, and a couple other guys are starting to turn a leaf that we're going to talk about in a second here. But just in general, after that series, I just felt like something got reset there. You know, I see some narratives out there that like, oh, the loss of Zach Wheeler was really gutting at first, but it's actually become this rallying point for the Phillies, and they want to win for him. They know he's watching, and they want to do exactly what we've been talking about on this show. They want to carry the team now since the ace of their rotation has gone down. I mean, this series kind of showed, hey, that team's still in there. This offense still works, and they can carry the team. You always wonder for how long, but they can do it.
Yeah, this was excellent to see, especially them doing it at home. I don't think they've been as solid at home as they have been in the past. This year, I know that they had great records at home the past few years. I'm just completely guessing, just from vibes and feelings. But seeing them really turn the screws on the Mariners, with apologies to my brother-in-law, Mariners fan, who is not listening. Did I text him about it in our family text? You bet I did. But seeing them do this against a team that is approaching, encroaching on the Astros in their division over in the American League.
Oh, that's one of the best lineups in baseball in Seattle right now. The addition of Suarez at the trade deadline made them that's not a lineup you want to face if your pitching is anything but perfect.
Yeah, exactly. And, they're a formidable team. And to see the Phillies just sort of, just not even worry about it, just hit and they felt relaxed. They didn't feel like they were pushing. They felt like they knew they could beat the Mariners despite them being, a formidable team. And that's the way they need to go into every series. Like there was no worry. There was nobody seemed concerned. My only issue was some of the problems that the bullpen had near the end of that first game. That first game was not great. When who was it? It was Jordan Romano and a guy that was sent down. What was his name? Nolan Hoffman. Yeah, that was not pleasant, and it added a bit to the score. But after watching the Aaron Nola explosion in person on Sunday, seeing the Phillies do this, and continue sort of being able to hit their way out of whatever, even though they weren't in anything bad, just hit and score runs. Seeing them do that was such a relief because I didn't want the vibes from that awful National Series to follow them.
There were a couple of hiccups out of the bullpen, as Liz mentioned. I mean, Jordan Romano, he's just not good. He's just not good, and everybody knows that when he's coming into the game. And you also know that he's coming into that game because they have a sizable lead. That's what he's doing there. And then, of course, when Jordan Romano comes into a game, and I said something similar to this on Blue Sky, any big lead can become a small lead with him pitching. So suddenly a low leverage situation becomes a high leverage situation. And then Orion Kirkering came in. He pitched a dominant inning. As you said, Nolan Hoffman came in. But the Phillies had expanded the lead at that point anyway, which was encouraging. And this is what I was talking about a couple weeks ago. The pieces are always there for the Phillies to pick themselves up. They don't always do it, but they're always there. And in this series, you really saw that when the offense continued to extend the lead as a couple of suffering members of the bullpen gave it up. Nolan Hoffman here for just a blip in time before Jose Alvarado was formally re-entered back into the bullpen. He has, of course, since gone back down to the minors. But in the other games, the bullpen had close to no complaints. Orion Kirkering did have a blown save in Game 2. He came into a game after Christopher Sanchez left, and he gave up a couple of runs. But that's more of a rough outing for Kirkering, who has otherwise been completely dominant in the second half and just an all-new pitcher and one of those guys who's really benefited from having Johan Duran coming into games late. And, the rest of that game was pretty flawless as Matt Strahm cleaned up the mess. David Robertson came in, pitched a clean inning with 2 strikeouts, and then Johan Duran finished the job. And in Game 3, you saw Robertson, Tanner Banks, Jose Alvarado, and Joe Ross combined to give up 1 earned run and strike out 5. I mean, this bullpen's operating the way it should, and I don't want to dwell too much on this because I know John Stolnis talked about it in our last episode, but I will go back and say, giving a lot of props to the offense because that feels newer to see them consistently barreling up and hitting hard and hitting well and hitting continuously. And you saw a lot of singles. You didn't have to rely on the home run, though Kyle Schwarber, of course, checked in. But a lot of singles, a lot of consistency, and a lot of the line moving. You definitely want to point that out. However, starting pitching was also very present. Each starter in this series gave the Phillies at least 6 solid innings. Nobody gave up more than 2 earned runs. And you cap it all off with a Jesus Luzardo performance in Game 3, in which he pitched 6 innings, allowed only 3 hits, and struck out 12.
12 over 6 innings! My God!
Phenomenal. That's 12 of 18 outs he recorded were strikeouts. I mean, that's absolutely what you want to see, and phenomenal. So just a great job for the most part all around for the Phillies in that Seattle series, and very encouraging, and exactly what you want to see when the Mets are floundering. And it's the kind of thing, I mentioned Kyle Schwarber, it's the kind of thing that makes you want to just hug the Phillies so hard they never go away. And Alex Coffey had a story I wanted to talk about real quick in yesterday's Inquirer about a sign some fans made for Kyle Schwarber. Did you see this?
No, I did not.
So they made this sign for him, and they wrapped it up, and they kind of tossed it into the Phillies dugout. Alex Coffey wrote about it. It was like throwing a message in a bottle into the sea, and they were just kind of hoping it would get to him. Who knows? Maybe it just gets swept up in the trash. So somebody checked in about like, oh, what's the status of this thing? Coffee checked in with the Phillies and was like, hey, did anybody find this? Did it get to Kyle? The Bat Boy, she says in her story, found it, and that they assume a member of the cleaning crew put it like on top of the dugout roof or something, like put it in a place where it had remained intact despite any rain or anything. And they did. They passed it along to Kyle Schwarber. And what this thing was a mock-up of the Declaration of Independence. It has a picture of Kyle Schwarber and a cannon and a balloon. And most of it is covered in signatures by hot dog vendors, grounds crew members, ushers, people from Citizens Bank Park. And it says, "We the people of Philadelphia didn't fight the British just to lose Schwarber. Hashtag resign Schwarbombs." It is excellent. Exactly what you want to see your fans doing to really, at the very least, make players feel guilty about considering even leaving them.
It's not just about the players. It's about, look at this, John Middleton. Here's the thing signed by, pick a person. And everyone wants him back.
The money that we spend on the team want this thing.
We the people
us this thing.
Who are watching MLB and the owners sign an enormous new media deal. Which presumably all of the owners will get a piece of. Like, that's huge. No one can cry poor. Use that money, John Middleton, to pay Kyle Schwarber. Do that.
I will say that Alex Coffey's story included quoted responses from Schwarber himself. And while they're all very nice, and it's Kyle Schwarber. I don't doubt for a minute that he genuinely appreciates it.
He's a nice man.
This. He showed that he's like, yeah, it gave me goosebumps. He showed on his arm. He's like, oh, I got goosebumps right now just reading this. And he talks about all the things in his own personal life that has happened since he's come to the Phillies. I will say, though, that if you're looking for an answer, non-committal is the vibe that you get from his quote. So it certainly affected him emotionally. We shall see if moves like that affect Kyle Schwarber contractually moving forward.
I mean, you can't blame him.
No,
I mean, he's in an incredible position. He rebuilt his value after essentially turning into a journeyman for a few years. He's got like this great reputation. He's got the stats to back it up. He's a great clubhouse guy, and he's going to cash in, as he should. Cash in, get that money, and God willing, the Phillies are the ones to give it to him. That's the thing. In the end, it won't be. We can't blame Kyle Schwarber if he goes somewhere that offered him more money. That's John Middleton's fault. That's the Phillies' fault.
Can we realistically blame him? No. Can we emotionally blame him?
Yes, probably.
Obviously,
and
that's
people
going to
will.
happen.
But I personally will do my best not to, because since it always feels so unfair to me. Like, someone's offering you $100 million, and then another team is offering you $120 million for the same amount of time. What are you going to do? You're going to go where they're going to give you more money.
And for a lot of reasons, why think about the future at all? Let's just enjoy what Kyle Schwarber's doing now.
Yes.
But you might be surprised to learn this, Liz. Kyle Schwarber, not the only member of the Phillies offense.
No.
Not anymore. I'm going to read you some numbers. Here. Mm-hmm. There's a Phillies player who in the first half hit .232 with a .633 OPS. He didn't hit a lot of line drives. He didn't make a lot of hard contact. He didn't even really hit a lot of fly balls for outs, and even fewer for home runs. His walk rate was low. Thankfully, his strikeout rate was also low. He had 23 hits with runners in scoring position, which actually was tied for third on the Phillies, but that probably had more to do with where he was hitting in the lineup. Jump ahead to the second half. This man is hitting .300. His OPS is .887. Still not hitting a lot of line drives. Still not making the most hard contact. Not hitting a lot of home runs, but that's not really his job. But he now has the highest walk rate on the Phillies, and that K rate has remained very low. He has 9 hits with runners in scoring position in 27 plate appearances in that scenario, which is third on the team, behind Turner and Schwarber, who've been the real engine of this offense. You want to take a stab at who I'm talking about?
I'm going to say Bryson Stott.
The answer is Bryson Stott.
Yeah, baby!
Because Bryson Stott is back. Bryson Stott is reborn.
Yes!
It has formally, officially happened. I'm calling it. Something we've always loved about Bryson Stott is his comfort.
Yes, I'm in.
With a 2-strike count. In 2023, he had the most hits with 2 strikes on the Phillies. In 2024, he had the second most hits with 2 strikes on the Phillies. He was tied with Bryce Harper and behind Trey Turner. And in 2025, he's got the second most hits with 2 strikes with 50, as Trey Turner has 61. On the season, the Phillies are hitting, since July, they're tied with the Cubs and Rockies with a 179 batting average with 2 strikes, 254 on base percentage with 2 strikes, and a 321 slugging percentage with 2 strikes. This month, though, Bryson Stott is hitting very well with 2 strikes. Not only that, he's hitting well with runners in scoring position. He is hit 8 for 16 in the month of August with runners in scoring position. That is a 500 batting average with runners in scoring position.
He's hitting, wow. I'm looking at his stats for August, like, holy crap.
Bryson Stott has arrived. It's late, but he got here.
He's here.
And boy, the timing could not have been better. This offense needs as many functioning members as it can find, and we've been waiting a long time to see this version of Bryson Stott. I hate saying it, but, you never know if things can be sustained or for how long, or maybe they just saw something against the Mariners, or maybe there truly is a lot to buy into as far as, hey, we need to rally now because Wheeler's out and we don't know for how long. So who knows? Maybe Stott just made the adjustment he's needed to make. The point is, he's been hitting so much better lately, playing so much better lately, and just looking more like that Bryson Stott we saw in 2022 and 2023, where he was really a very productive, speedy member of the offense who just was very comfortable hitting in clutch situations. It's a trait that a lot of the Phillies, you can point to moments that a lot of the Phillies have had, at least, even if it's not like a part of their game long term, where they knock in a lot of runs from the middle of the order with, like, in clutch situations with runners in scoring position. Yeah, this team has weird numbers with the bases loaded, but with runners in scoring position, there's a couple of guys who maybe you wouldn't expect that have really come up big, and now Bryson Stott has really been one of those guys lately. Liz, I mean, I'll just give you a chance to gush as well. Bryson Stott finally looking like he's returning to form. I love it. I've been waiting for it. I know you have too.
I have, and I've been actually noticing it. Sometimes that stuff doesn't pass the eye test. They're doing a little bit more. You don't necessarily see it, but I've noticed him taking more walks in general since this, in the start of the second half. I've noticed him getting on base more just in general. His spot in the lineup is not a black hole. He's just looked a lot more confident and a lot more relaxed. He doesn't look like he doesn't look like he's worried anymore when he comes up to the plate. And as someone who focuses a lot on the emotions of the Phillies, that's a good thing to see. He's comfortable with what he's doing. He knows that he's got a shot no matter what. His big thing in 2023 and some of 2022 was his ability to sort of erase the memory of whatever happened in the, earlier in the at bat that he's at, the earlier pitch, just sort of be able to swing free and identify pitches as they come in and identify what is a good pitch for him to hit. And it feels like that he's back in that groove. He's rediscovered that strength, because that's really what set him apart from the rest of the daycare as they were back in a couple of years ago. It's great to see him doing better, looking more confident. I think he's stolen a couple more bases too, which is, to me, something that players only do when they're feeling all right at the plate.
There are 2 Phillies with more than 1 stolen base in the month of August. One's Trey Turner and one's Bryson Stott. Turner's
there we
got
go.
6 and Stott's got 5. Yeah, that's you're right. That's something, when a guy's feeling himself, he's taking it upon himself to take that extra base. I mean, that's Ken Rosenthal had a column that I thought was really bad, but it was about the Milwaukee Brewers and just kind of their success lately. And he just took a very broad kind of they do a lot of the little stuff. Well, kind of okay,
it's
great,
all
whatever.
crap.
But there is a core of truth to this idea that you can be a team in 2025 who falls susceptible to the idea that you're looking at all of the StatCast and Baseball Savant stuff in the clubhouse and trying to adopt philosophies rather than look at a more granular level at what you could be doing correctly, and that winds up coming down to like fundamentals. And that is what Rosenthal was talking about. He's like, well, the Brewers are so good because they're running out grounders and they're hitting the cutoff man. And you kind of shake your head like, yeah, I mean, we're talking about the best baseball players in the world here. Are so many of them not hitting the cutoff man that the Brewers can just like win 14 games in a row by doing that? But
the bare minimum,
your cynical sarcasm, there is something here, I think, to the point that like we've seen the Phillies mess up fundamentally plenty of times this year. How many games ago was it where they were just like suddenly they would touch third base and just vaporize? Where Trey Turner got himself out at third and Brandon Marsh got himself out at third. And you're like, what are we doing, guys? You got to touch third to get home. So we're just not scoring today. So there are times when the Phillies fundamentally aren't able to really get it done. And you can see plenty of times where they're all trying to do the big thing rather than the little things first. So while I still don't think it was a great column, there is something to pull from it that I think the Phillies could learn. And when you talk about their success recently, it's by doing those things. And Bryson Stott stealing those bases and Trey Turner being aggressive stealing bases this month as well are some of those things.
Yeah, I noted it like a couple of weeks ago, not on the podcast, but to my husband while we were on the couch watching the games. I'm like, look at that. He ran out that grounder all the way. And it's a good thing he did. He actually, it was a bad throw, but it was like really close. And because he hustled all the way, there was a man on first who eventually came around to score. Like those are the little things that you do. At this point in the season, you get real tired, which is why August always feels like a down month for every team. Everyone's freaking tired. Everyone's tired of doing the small things and the big things. But the ability to push through and do those fundamental things, those little things, is what separates a team like the Brewers and the Phillies from teams like the Mets.
Some teams are definitely feeling it this month. Did you know, according to Fangraphs, that the Pittsburgh Pirates are possibly going to become one of the first teams ever, or the first team ever, to not have a single league average hitter on their roster?
Oh, my God.
Amazing. It's good to be on this side of Pennsylvania.
Holy crap, yeah.
Bryson Stott's not the only guy who's been hitting well for the Phillies and wasn't before. I can't believe we're about to have this conversation. In the month of August, there are 4 Phillies with at least 35 plate appearances who are hitting .320 or better. Trey Turner is one of them. Absolutely. No. Not surprising. Crushing it. Bryson Stott, we just talked about. He's hitting .354. Don't do this to me. In the month of August. JT Realmuto, been crushing it lately, absolutely on fire. Last 3 months, and we're going to talk about him in a minute. I got a lengthy, curious topic to talk about in regards to JT Realmuto, which if you've seen any baseball news in the last 12 hours, you might know exactly where I'm going with this. But there's a 4th person who has been contributing to this offense.
I hate you.
I hate it too.
Filled with hatred towards you specifically. Is it Max Kepler?
Max Kepler's hitting .324.
I'm so angry.
In the month of August with a .910 OPS. Yes, of that group, he's got the fewest amount of plate appearances with only 38. Trey Turner has 90 and is putting up better numbers. But still, in the month of August, Max Kepler's hitting .324 with a 10.5% K rate. That is the second lowest among Phillies position players. So I wouldn't say that was never ever really his problem. His problem was he was putting the ball in play just poorly. Remember, I kept saying those BABIP numbers indicate poor luck that has been going on for a long time. It was the only little crumb of hope or optimism there was for Max Kepler at that time. It didn't seem like he could break out of whatever slump was around his neck. But you saw those batting average on balls in play numbers, and when they're as low as his were, they objectively mean this guy is suffering from bad luck. That is at least a component of the reason he is struggling. Max Kepler in the month of August is slugging .568. only Kyle Schwarber has a higher slugging percentage than Max Kepler this month.
What are we doing here?
His hard hit rate, hang on, there's more. His hit rate is 42.4%. That means 42.4% of his batted balls are hit what Fangraphs dictates as hard. That is a half point lower than Bryce Harper, a man who isn't hitting if he's not hitting hard. Max Kepler has the highest line drive rate on the Phillies in the month of August. I feel like I knew this just from the eyeball test. Even when he gets out anymore, he is lining out to the outfield. He is the only one hitting line drives in over 30% of his batted balls.
Oh, my God.
Elizabeth, is Max Kepler here to save the Phillies season?
I can't believe you said that. Go jump in a lake, man. What are we doing? And I'm just going to keep this attitude. I'm going to keep this attitude because it's worked thus far, I guess. I don't know. Is this it working? Is this a resurgence, or is this a lucky 37 plate appearances? Like, I'll say it's hard to make any firm judgments with so few plate appearances, especially if it means Rob Thompson decides to give him more, which I think we can all agree would not necessarily be the best thing.
At the start of this, Rob Thompson said, we're giving guys a chance here, and Kepler's been having some good at-bats lately. That's how it started, and I was like, oh, come on. And every home run, he would hit a home run every, 50 at-bats or whatever, and you'd just be like, well, that just bought him another 50. Great. And this time, though,
it's working.
It's kind of working. I don't know.
How long can he keep this up? Who knows? But, I mean, good for him. I am thrilled for him and these handful of at-bats that he has given us in August. Is there more for me to say about this? Certainly. Will I say it here? No, because this is a family podcast. Good for him. What else are you looking for here, Justin? What else can I say? What other words do you need me to say here? Because I'm trying to think of more stuff to say about Max Kepler, and you just wanted to present me with these facts and see what I did.
I'm just laying the information at your feet, and I just want to see your general response. I'll throw Alec Boehm a bone here as well. In the month of August, he has the second highest walk rate on the Phillies, behind Bryson Stott, of course.
Nice.
And he's hitting .313 with a .984 OPS this month. He's only got 19 plate appearances, but hey, good to have you back, Alec. And it's good to see as many functioning members of this offense as there are right now. There are a lot of success stories in the Phillies batting order in the month of August, and it's just great to see.
Yeah.
And one of those success stories is JT Realmuto, who has been crushing it for the last couple months now. And for a guy who you wondered what the future was for him, you wondered what the future was for the Phillies at the catching position for so long. And, we all know the situation. Eduardo Tait isn't even with the Phillies organization anymore. He's in Minnesota, sent there as part of the deal that acquired the Phillies, the best closer in baseball. So as far as the catching position in the Phillies organization, it kind of is more JT Realmuto than ever when you look at what's available. And you're not sure what's going to happen. Obviously, that situation is as unclear as Kyle Schwarber's. But what's true right now is that JT Realmuto is playing like a guy you'd want to re-sign, even a 35-year-old catcher who's playing 34 at the moment, but who's playing as well as he has some appeal. Because when you're as good as JT Realmuto, even when you're starting to be not as good as you used to be, you're still pretty good. But we're gonna step to the side here a little bit and talk about a different catcher who's in the news lately. Catcher in Baltimore by the name of Adley Rutschman.
Adley.
You follow baseball. You know Adley Rutschman. Huge catching prospect for the Orioles. Top of the heap with that young stable of players they have. Gunnar Henderson, as far as guys that they were kind of planning to build around for their fabled crop of youngsters that's seemingly unending and coming up through their farm system. Rutschman debuts in 2022 with a lot of anticipation and applause. He hurts his tricep in the spring, which delays his big league career, but only a little bit. But the Orioles promote him in May. On May 21st, he somewhat famously goes out to his position behind home plate for the first time as the catcher for the Baltimore Orioles. He gets a standing ovation, does a full 360, kind of taking the whole scene in with a big, deep breath. The whole thing had a very, this is the beginning of something we'll all remember kind of vibe. That's the status he had by the time he'd even gotten to the major leagues. And as the Baseball Prospectus Annual that would have had him on the cover the following year put it, it would be hard to build a more ideal franchise cornerstone. His chase rate has stayed low, his swinging strike rate stayed low, his framing was the 6th best in the game, and he's a switch hitter. Baltimore skipped the playoffs in 2022, but all things were looking up for Rutschman. Coming into 2023, Rutschman had a reputation in baseball now, even more so. He was known as a personable, high-energy catching young catcher with high value as a pitch blocker, the arm but not always the instincts to catch base stealers, and an ability to not chase pitches out of the zone, as always. A great fastball hitter, generally everything you want to see from a young player. He finished that season top 10 among Major League Baseball catchers in batting average and 3rd in on-base percentage. He wasn't a big power guy, but he had one of the lowest strikeout rates among catchers and the highest walk rate among all catchers, as well as the 5th most hits with 113, 10 fewer than JT Realmuto, who led all of baseball that year with 123. Rutschman was named an All-Star at 25 years old. It was all going according to plan going into 2024. In fact, coming into June 27th of that year, Rutschman was 7th in hits among catchers, doing it again. Cumulative stats were all a little lower than the previous year, but he still generally was considered a top 10 catcher. Then he gets his index finger smashed by a pitch behind the plate. And as the BP Annual informs us, he then hits .210 the rest of the way that season with a .604 OPS. It's much lower and not what you want. His pitch framing also takes a sizable hit. Something he does well, hit the ball hard, also starts going down. He has the lowest hard hit rate from June 27th to the rest of the year among all Major League Baseball catchers. 20.7 of his batted balls were hit hard. He still is on the All-Star team that year, despite the injury, clearly having an impact on him. And this year, Rutschman has continued to struggle. Right now, he's hitting .231 with a .689 OPS. Nowhere near a top 10 catcher in Major League Baseball with those numbers. The website Just Baseball pointed out back in June that he no longer seems able to hit to all fields as he once did. He does not hit fastballs nearly as well as he once did. His switch hitting has also become somewhat dubious. He got rid of a leg kick in his swing and went off against the Mariners in his home region in the Pacific Northwest earlier this year, refuting the claim that he was nearing bust territory, which, yes, the B word had started to enter the conversation about Adley Rutschman. Unthinkable. But things did not aggressively improve. Now, he's got an oblique strain, headed to the injured list. He's going to miss some time. A somewhat raw young catcher, who is known for his hitting, but not so much for his catching, has popped out of the Orioles farm system, of course. His name is Samuel Basallo. He will be getting an extended look in the major leagues as Rutschman is out. The Orioles also gave him an 8-year extension, triggering conversations like the one we're having. Basallo is the first of these baby birds to get a contract extension, a topic that was becoming somewhat sour in Baltimore. It's been whispered that maybe Rutschman can't take the heat, literally. Simply plays better in a place like the Northwest because he's not melting behind the plate. Harold Reynolds of MLB Network says the Orioles are potentially looking at trading him. Of course, Harold Reynolds is not someone anyone should listen to about anything, but this idea is out there, is the point. And I'm bringing it up here because the Phillies have a catcher who is due to hit free agency. They apparently love the idea of bounce-back candidates if last year's free agent signings were any indication. And until now, there hasn't really been a clear alternative to just re-signing JT Realmuto, which, again, isn't something I don't want to do. It's certainly an option. It's certainly the leading option right now with the way he's playing. But any deal comes with caveats, and I think anybody would tell you, even if the Phillies announced today, hey, we want to re-sign Realmuto, there would be people out there saying but at this point in his career, even with the kind of numbers he's putting up, people would say that. I, in this case, would not be one of those people because of how well he's been playing lately, but it's a topic in that conversation. Looking at the numbers now, there's not too much to say. Rutschman needs to be good again, and the Orioles... should the Orioles move him, the team on the receiving end of that deal must think that they can be the team that fixes him because he needs fixing. Realmuto has the most hits of any catcher in baseball this year. He just has the most. Even as he declines as a 34-year-old catcher, he is doing so from a height that is so high that sometimes you don't notice that he's actually technically in decline. And in August, he's hitting .328. But this has been going on for months. As John Stolnis wrote on The Good Fight, after 2 bad months to start the season, Realmuto underwent, quote, a remarkable turnaround, batting .321 getting on base at a 360 clip and slugging .434 in 55 games over that stretch. Since July 1st, the numbers are even better. Hitting .338, getting on base at .368, slugging .492. He can still throw runners out, as we saw in that series against the Rangers in key spots. Even if he's not at the top of the sport anymore in some catcher-exclusive categories, he's still a very good catcher. And if the Phillies win the World Series with him in 2025, it's going to look even better for a re-signing. Real Muto said back in February that, hell, he'd play left field if it came to that. So, what do you think, Liz? Right now, today, based on what we have in front of us, just today, are the Phillies closer to re-signing their veteran catcher? Is it worth mulling over what it would take to sign a young all-star with a high ceiling who has sunk pretty low for the Orioles to potentially give up on him? I mean, is this a thing? I'm not just pulling this out of nowhere. I mean, there's other people went to that thought pretty quick when it became clear, like, oh, okay, Rutschman's hurt. This other young catcher is going to be getting some playing time. They want to sign him to this extension. Is Adley Rutschman going to suddenly be available for trade? And if so, are you thinking about the player he was and the heights he could go back to reaching? Are you looking more at what he's been struggling with lately and thinking, that's not really going to be worth it? Or are you thinking, oh, the fact that he's been struggling means what we would have to give up for him would be lower, and then potentially we're getting that guy back who was such a great young catcher, and gives you an opportunity to move on from Real Muto, if that's something you want to do, which at this point, why would it be?
I'll start with Rutschman and the Orioles. They just signed their young catcher, to an absurdly team-friendly deal. Like, bonkers team-friendly. And his contract will cost probably less than what Rutschman will make in arbitration next year, because that's his first arbitration year, is 2026. He won't be a free agent till 2028. So my instinct is, unless this new guy stinks out loud, they're going to be looking to unload Rutschman. Maybe not in 26, but certainly in 27. And if the chance comes sometime in 26, then I think he's gone. I just don't think they like this other guy more. They gave him a quote huge extension they gave him a Scott. Now I can't remember his last name. Oh God, Scott. What's his name?
Oh, Scott Kingery.
Thank you. I could not remember his last name to save my life.
I was like, Scott Fransky? Who are we talking about?
No, thank you. Sorry. I didn't give you enough context or background for that. No, but he got a Scott Kingery contract, that's absurdly team-friendly, that's very long. They like him, presumably, and if he can do better if he could look even somewhat close to what Rutschman has looked like at his worst and has the ceiling of Rutschman at his best, I see no reason why they wouldn't take the cheap guy over the guy who's going to make more by virtue of just having been around longer, which is depressing. But I also don't think the Orioles have the tools to help Rutschman figure out what's wrong. They haven't been really helping him. Whatever he's been doing hasn't, the little things haven't stuck. Nothing has helped him overall. And his catching has suffered. And I think a change in scenery to anywhere would be good. I also think most players should get out of the Orioles organization, just as a rule. But a change in scenery, I wouldn't say no to Rutschman. I wouldn't want him to be the primary option. I'd love for them to pick him up at the deadline next year, and sort of have him switch on and off with Real Muto in sort of a, if they re-sign Real Muto, which I think is probably a decent possibility, and have him switch on and off with Real Muto and see if working with him helps, see if working with the Phillies guys, Phillies coaches really helps him. Working with, the consensus best catcher in baseball for a number of years could only help this kid. I think, yeah. Kid, he's 27 now. I want the best for Adley Rutschman. I think that the Orioles have kind of miffed it. They've buffed it.
This is just kind of an interesting time to have this exact conversation because of how well Real Muto has been playing. And I mean, like I said, it's not even like he's really turned it on in August. It's been months of him really being a great offensive contributor to this lineup. Do you think he's going to be 35? Like, is that, how much of a factor is that when just you personally are thinking about the Phillies re-signing him, which I agree. I think that's the move. That's the primary move. That has to be plan A right now. I mean, unless he wants like the absolute moon as far as a contract goes. But I mean, if he's willing to be reasonable, I don't see why the Phillies wouldn't have that as their primary plan for the catching role in the future. But obviously more work needs to be done here. They're not very deep at all at catching organizationally. I think where the depth is lower, where it's not going to even really be an option at the major league level for years. So Real Muto kind of is the plan, and if he's not, then a plan with a couple other parts kind of has to become the plan. And if a guy like Rushman's on the market, then undoubtedly, if they're not going with Real Muto, he's at least someone that you look in at. You consider the option there because of how high that ceiling is. I would say, that potential still exists. He's young enough that he's not just done. There's a problem happening somewhere. And you're right. The Orioles have not been helpful enough in helping him crack it. You can't put all the blame on the organization. He's the one swinging the bat. But at the same time, we've seen players struggle, make an adjustment and figure it out. And Rushman just has not been able to fully figure it out for the long term. That being said, knowing what he can do, it's tantalizing. So, I know I'm zigging and zagging, but ultimately what I'm saying is Real Muto is an important part of this offense. And right now, I feel like you'd be crazy not to make plan A re-signing him. That's got to be the plan. But it's just curious to see. This is a new twist. This is a new twist on this saga and the potential, role of the catcher in Philadelphia in the years to come. So it's definitely at least worth discussing. It
is worth discussing. Until Real Muto starts to show some real deterioration in either his hitting skills or his catching skills, neither of which has happened. He might not be the best catcher in baseball anymore, but he's still very good. He's very, very good at what he does. And he's kept himself healthy, not specifically in season, but overall. He's not a guy who squats at the plate. He does the one knee, which protects catchers' knees in such a major way. And I think we're going to start to see how that specific stance is going to extend catchers, their playability. But Real Muto has kept himself in incredible condition, and you can't ignore that. And I think you also can't look back at the last generation and just sort of conclude when guys get to 35, they all suck, or they're all going to start to suck. Things have changed a whole lot in baseball, in fitness, and in, health in general to keep these guys in great condition. So I would say, until he starts to show deterioration, I don't make a plan B. JT Real Muto is your plan A and stick with it. I still would be a fan of, they're going to have to find their next catcher via sign or trade, one of the two. There's no option. There's no other option for them. They don't have anyone in the system that will work for that. But I think Real Muto would be open to signing, what was the length of the deal that he signed with the Phillies a few years ago was 5 years? Something like that. I was thinking 5, yeah. Yeah.
5 year, $115 million.
I think if he'd be willing to take a 2-year contract with a third as an option to sort of help the Phillies leave their options open, and he can, his options as well, I think that would be a really good plan. I think that's probably, unless it's a high annual value, I don't think he'd take it. But maybe he would. All the Phillies people know more than me. But you need to make sure the Phillies are taking care of themselves and leaving their options open, because they're eventually going to need someone new. They're going to need another catcher.
You're talking about we're talking about in the Phillies organization. Catching is thin in baseball. There's not 30 good catchers out there. There's not 20 good catchers out there. There's teams out there starting Martin Maldonado in 2025. I mean, you got to understand, if you have a catcher who's producing for you, that's gold. You got to understand how fortunate that is to the spot to be in like that. And finding your next catcher isn't as easy as, the picking a name in the draft. You gotta. There's some work involved there, and the Phillies just, they've been able to get by with a thin catching team because they've got JT Realmuto at the top. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I think right now, work something out with JT.
Yeah.
I do wonder how much that impacts your ability to work something out with Schwarber because, I'm very much on team, bring them both back right now.
Yeah. Like there's, at this point, regardless of what happens in the playoffs, there's no question you have to bring them both back. Unless you want your team to get significantly worse, you have to bring them both back because you're going to pay less money for someone who's less good. And that's only if there's someone with that, with a decent catcher and, a power guy available. And you don't know if they're going to be guys that are even worth, a lesser amount of money. Like the Phillies are just going to have to bite the bullet and go over the luxury tax, go over the second luxury tax threshold and deal with it. It's not all that much money, all things considered. And they saved a bunch of money this year by signing some terrible dudes. So, they got by with it this year, but I just don't think they'll be able to next year.
Also, we found
they just won't.
If we throw messages into the dugout, there's a non-zero chance they'll reach the players. And that can go both ways, John Middleton. So, we'll wrap up. We'll talking about this. Hey, Cole Hamels will be back in the broadcast booth this weekend as the Phillies take on the Nationals. That's fun. Like having Cole back. He'll be in there with Tom McCarthy and Ruben Amaro. Okay. But yeah, all set for...
Come on. Where's the only person I ever want to hear next to Tom McCarthy is John Kruk, and that's true for everyone. No one wants to hear Ruben. No one.
Well, in any case, Cole Hamels will be back. Always fun to have him around. I like they like to experiment with former Phillies in broadcast roles, and hopefully Hamels has a longer role. Just because I like having him around. Hopefully, the future means more Cole Hamels because why not? And starting for the Phillies this weekend against the Nationals, the Phillies will be facing Cade Cavalli again. They also get Mitchell Parker again and Jake Irvin on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Going for the Phillies tonight will be Taijuan Walker. Saturday, get ready for round 2 with Aaron Nola taking on one of the worst teams in the majors. We'll see how many dozens of runs he gives up in, I'm going to say, the 4th inning. And then Ranger Suarez gets the finale on Sunday in the 1:35 matinee. Liz, any predictions for this particular National Series? This one's just 3 games, so maybe the Phillies have something figured out. Maybe they can get a couple of good starts here. I don't know. You feel like this series goes better than the last one?
I'm hoping they go. Yeah, I hope so. I hope they go 2-1 with that one game, of course, being the Nola start.
After the Nationals, they head up to Flushing to take on those floundering Mets. So, that'll be a test of sorts as well as those teams finally meet again. But that'll do it for this episode of Hittin' Season. Thanks again to my co-host, Liz Roscher. For more episodes of Hittin' Season every week, go to billypenn.com/Hittin' Season or anywhere you get your podcasts. For bonus Phillies podcasts, check out the Hittin' Season Patreon at patreon.com/Hittin' Season. One of our shows over there is The Dirty Inning, where we talk about the dumbest, funniest, and most obscure innings in Philadelphia Phillies history. And we did an episode on Dave Parker and the Pirates. From 1978. Dave Parker passed away this past June, and we wanted to do an episode to commemorate him, so we picked one where the Phillies and Pirates were on a collision course in 1978. The Pirates were hard charging for the division lead at the end of the season, right at the end. And there were only 3.5 games between the Phillies and Pirates, and they were playing each other in a 4-game series in Pittsburgh, where the Pirates had a 22-game win streak. So it was a real immovable objects, et cetera, whatever the cliche is.
Unstoppable force.
Yeah, that kind of scenario, and Dave Parker played a big role in that series, and that was a great episode. It was a lot of fun. So go on over to the Hittin' Season Patreon and listen to that. Thanks for listening, and from WHYY, that's the ballgame. We'll talk to you next time on Hittin' Season.